One Playday left and 3 opportunities for 4 teams to make it into the playoffs to join Direwolves as it starts of next week. There's a lot on the line, and to join me today, Dev and Raven, lovely to see you both. Dev, you're looking quite, actually you're both looking quite drippy today. I do enjoy this. Dev, where'd you get that shirt from?
Bugger if I know, it was a long time ago, but I
haven't seen you wear
honestly,
it.
I saw what Brandon was wearing and I was like, mate, that is what I'm going for. That is the look. I like yours, so you've got the little Pro League logo, bit of a throwback.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throwback. Feels like a very long throwback there. Raven, speaking of throwing back, why don't you throw back to last week? Don't throw back on camera, whatever you do. We can start talking about what we saw in the matches last week. RENATUS and Fury kicked us off.
They did kick us off, and once again, it was a bit of a display of Fury's struggle, but look, they're fighting back a little bit. The ultimate scoreline didn't really reflect how it felt like Fury were performing, but again, ultimately, they didn't really secure any points there. RENATUS proving too strong. RENATUS doing a really good job at reading Fury early. In particular, it was a lot more about map control and early time management in that matchup, which is really what saw RENATUS accelerate out to that 7-4 victory.
And when we look toward Elevate and the Chiefs game, this was really expected to be a barn burner, Dev, and it was almost anything but.
This was a really tough reality check for the Chiefs. It started looking like a close game, but then Elevate really started to run away with it, and that is thanks to the man on screen, Onigiri. He turned it up to the next level, and then of course DCH closed the game with this 1 versus 2 clutch. It was nuts, and this was the Elevate that we know and love that we saw at SI.
Direwolves held on to their streak, Raven going 6-0. WILDCARD looked to give them a bit of a close affair, but really Direwolves start to pull away in this.
Yeah, Direwolves again just proving that they really are the top team this stage. They had a really good game against WILDCARD, who were up and firing quite early, but ultimately Direwolves just proved too strong on border. Shot out to that 7-4 score line, and once again border kind of really proving that it seems to be favoring some of these Southeast Asian teams in terms of their play style. But for Direwolves, that was them securing their top of the table position for playoffs.
One team just underneath them are the Knights, and they proved all their haters, as an oxen goes, wrong, Dev.
This game was nuts. This game really was such a treat. I think IG came into this game as the favorites, and it looked to be very close back and forth, but Knights have absolutely stepped it up to the next level. It is amazing to see how far this team has come in just a couple of play days. They managed to steal away the 3 points, and seeing Quiz and Stigs step up. I mean, just look at the reaction from Sage. These guys are loving it, and they are nearly locked for playoffs now, thanks to that result.
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting to see where this team is going, Raven. We had a lot of questions about so many of the teams at the start of this stage. There was 40% of the entire league renewed and revitalized, and this is now where we kind of end up. Playday 6 leaves us with Direwolves out on top by 7 points, but really it's the teams from 2nd to 5th that we're keeping our eyes on.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a scrap there amongst those 4 teams, and only 3 spots remaining means that tonight does create a bit of a spicy situation in terms of who is going to lock those final 3 spots. In particular, of course, there are some really big games tonight, which we'll look into a bit later. But you're right, like talking back to that Knights situation, you can see there they're neck and neck with Invictus Gaming. So getting that victory last week was just so critical for getting Knights up into this spot.
And there's even some other storylines going on down the bottom of the table, Dev. Fury obviously needing something. They need a point. We cannot have them go 000. I should just say 0007. Unfortunately, no James Bond joke there. But they really are staring down the barrel of absolutely nothing at all.
That's it. Just like we have Direwolves gunning for a perfect 21-point season, Fury are gunning for a perfect 0-point season. Hopefully, they will be able to get at least a point off of Elevate, but it's going to be really tough. WILDCARD, RENATUS as well, both of those teams also not able to make playoffs, just like Fury. However, the winner of their match will take 6th place, and the loser will go into 7th, which, you know, come the end of the year, is a bottom 2 relegation spot. WILDCARD played in relegations last year as they were the bottom team in the league, and RENATUS obviously qualified for APAC South by playing through the relegation tournament coming in. So both of those teams are going to be gunning to try and show that they are the best of the rest.
Speaking of their matches, let's turn our attention to today, Playday 7, the final Playday, or the final installment almost of the first stage. It is, of course, going to be WILDCARD and RENATUS kicking us off. Couple of permutations there. We've already talked about it, Dev. Team that loses this obviously sits in 7th place. Not only that, both of these teams, you know, WILDCARD finished on 6 points in stage 1 last year, so that's not really a good mark if we see them bow out again with only 6 points. But RENATUS obviously looking to have a better start to their stage 1 than maybe most of us had anticipated. Raven, as we work our way down, Direwolves and Knights. Now, this is perceived to be match of the night if you were to look at this. It's first versus second, but really it is a match for Knights just to secure playoffs.
Yeah, definitely a really big one for the Knights there. It's not to be undersold. They just want to get some points to lock in their spot for those playoffs, so definitely keep an eye out for Knights fighting tooth and nail against Direwolves here to try and lock that one in.
And Chiefs and IG, as we look at the predictions, Dev, that matchup, really that is the match of the day, right? That is the one that we're looking at and saying the implications of that are just drastically large.
Hands down. I mean, IG and Chiefs are the two teams that are looking like they're least likely to make playoffs right now. Keep in mind, we have 5 teams vying for 4 spots, or more specifically, 4 teams vying for 3 spots, and Chiefs and IG are currently on the outside looking in. It's highly likely one of those guys is going to miss out. So the result of their match could well dictate which of those teams is to miss out. And that's kind of crazy to think that these two teams had so much hype coming in, IG in particular, with that super roster, with all of the aces and 4Ks and clutches that we have seen from Speakeasy and Nate and all the rest, that they could go home if they can't take down the Chiefs. And likewise for the Chiefs, who have had such a hyped up year, you know, being the national champions in OCN and of course going to the November major. That game is, as you can see, very tightly contested, but I will say we have just as much disparity in the predictions in the Direwolves Knights game, and even, funnily enough, that Fury Elevate game. Like, Rob, what's going on there?
Yeah, look, I'm shooting for the stars here. If I manage to get all my predictions right today, I actually think I leapfrog over Raven and potentially take the crown. I don't know whether that's really going to happen or not, but I had to shoot my shot. I don't know whether I'll ever even get there. But I think as well, like the thing with the Fury Elevate game is Fury are fighting for everything, whereas Elevate are essentially fighting for 1 point to secure their playoffs run, right? There's a couple of things in there that do make me question, and I've just got to give Fury the benefit of the doubt. They just have not had a great stage whatsoever, and Q Confirm were always finishing just outside of the playoffs point, if you will. They were always finishing, you know, 5th, 6th place last year, and I just wanted to give them something. Unfortunately, they haven't given us anything, so that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But, you know, now that we're starting to focus a little bit more on today's matches, WILDCARD and RENATUS are the first team that we have going head-to-head. Dev, where are we sitting with this? Are you kind of feeling up in the air? Are we leaning toward WILDCARD because of their previous performances?
Well, it is very hard to lean towards one team or another. These teams have never played each other before, and they're currently sitting on the exact same number of points. Yep. WILDCARD has a lot of hope because of the pedigree of the roster, because of the history, but let's remember that these guys were last in the league in the 2021 season. RENATUS are an up-and-coming team with huge potential. They had a fantastic upset over Elevate, and they're looking to do the same against what is arguably, you know, a weaker team than Elevate in WILDCARD. So I think this is probably just about the closest matched team that we're going to have. Sorry, match fixture that we're going to have tonight.
We'll start talking about the WILDCARD roster first here, Raven. We'll dive into what we've kind of seen from them, because I think that am I going to be right in saying we're a little bit disappointed?
Look, I think in a way, yes, but in a way, no. Like, I feel like they've had a fairly decent stage. You know, like, their matches have been close. They've put up some really solid rounds. Ultimately, not all of them resulted in wins, clearly, because here they are in 6th place at the moment. But they've been performing quite well as a roster, so I think the future is bright. And I think that based on what we've heard in some of the interviews that we did happen to have with WILDCARD, that's kind of how they look at it as well. They knew that this was more of a long-term build for them, and I think that they would still be fairly okay with how this stage has played out. Obviously, not getting playoffs, it's not great, but I think it's been a positive step forward for the roster.
And Dev, are you kind of seeing that finishing, you know, if they were, let's say they were to win this game, do you think finishing on 9 points isn't all that bad for WILDCARD?
Honestly, I think that WILDCARD have disappointed already. I mean, it's hard because we get pretty hyped for them when we see them have really good matches, which they have had some really good games. But, like, remember that last year in Stage 1, when they were playing with Silex, when Diesel had to vacate the roster, you know, rather urgently, they had to play with their coach, they got 8th and they only got 6 points. They are currently on 6 points. Like, if they don't get any points here, they are back to where they were a whole year ago when they were playing with their coach. That is That is not great. Like, for all of the hard work that these guys have put in, they believe that they deserve more than that, and they've got to prove it in the server, because they can't do as well as they did in Stage 2 last year, where they managed to get 10 points. That boat has sailed already, but they can at least show that they have made some progress.
Their opponents that are trying to set a benchmark for themselves for the rest of this year. RENATUS, let's take a look at them. Raven, what are you making of this roster? I mean, they were near flawless all up until the first Playday, obviously. They managed to take down the big dogs in Elevate, but since then, that's where things started to go a little bit haywire. We thought, hey, Playday 2, they performed well against the Knights, 7-4 loss, but then it really started to kind of get chipped away as we went through.
Yeah, it did, and that was pretty unfortunate because it felt like after that first Playday, there was so much promise in this roster coming in through the promo relegations.
Yeah.
But I think they just never really found their feet afterwards. But that's, you know, it's similar to WILDCARD in a way. I feel like they've walked a similar path in that, you know, RENATUS at least have shown also some promise. You know, like some of their matches have looked quite clean, and there are some really good elements to their roster. I talked about it in when we recapped the results against Fury last week. You know, a lot of their attacks were quite impressive with the way they were identifying map control that they could quickly take, and their time management towards actually handling that. I think there is a lot of good things about them. It's just the fact that they're new to this level and they just need a bit more time.
Look, at the start of this stage, we were saying map vetoes aren't really making too much of a difference because we don't know what these teams have. We've now had 7 Playdays coming into the 7th Playday, I should say. Dev, maps are starting to make a bit of a difference. Let's have a look at where we're going to be heading for this matchup. Hopefully you can give us a little bit more insight. It is Chalet. That seems to be just the stock standard map here in APAC South.
Yeah, Chalet is a very popular map these days, and we've seen both of these teams play it quite a little bit recently. WILDCARD had a win over Fury 7-5 a couple of, 2 weeks ago, and we saw last week RENATUS had a win over Fury as well, 7-4. So both of these teams have won on this map, albeit against the team in the league that hasn't got a single point yet. So hard to read too much into that. We've also seen WILDCARD lose it to Chiefs 5-7. So I can't just straight up say that this is a really good map for either team, because I don't think that RENATUS has truly been tested on this map. And I think WILDCARD, you'd probably expect them to struggle against Chiefs anyway, and getting 5 rounds against Chiefs on this map is actually a pretty formidable feat.
Raven, what we've seen from WILDCARD is a lot more of almost like a return to their methodical nature that they used to have back in 2020 on Chalet. They've got an element of, kind of danger to them when they are on their attacks. Things seem to be stepping up a lot quicker. Do you think RENATUS are going to be able to hold back that storm?
Look, I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Again, kind of backing up Dev's point, it feels like we haven't seen RENATUS really tested on Chalet.
Yep.
And WILDCARD, as you can see there, 1 win, 1 loss. Sure, the loss was to Chiefs, but still, I think it's definitely a bit more of a 50-50.
Yeah.
I think I'm still feeling confident towards WILDCARD in this one. I feel like WILDCARD probably are going to be wanting to really cement themselves in the top of the bottom 4, so to speak, because ultimately at the end of the day, you have to think about the long stretch here. We've got 3 stages. Teams want to accumulate as much points as possible to stay out of that promo relegation situation. So this match definitely still has some weight to it in that regard, and I'm just feeling like WILDCARD's more ready to kind of take that on.
What I find interesting now is all these different site stats, right? Like the defense win rate for Kitchen and Dining is at 73%. It's also the most played site that we have by only 1. All sites are available, Dev. All sites are being used by the different teams. Things are making it a little bit more, I would say it's kind of separating from last year where things just felt like it was bar and master and that was what was constantly played. But I do have to ask you for your prediction here. I know that you've kind of already given us the wild card, but are we still leaning that way?
Look, for me, the win condition for WILDCARD is the fact that they have to step up on their attacks. That was really where they struggled against Chiefs. They lost 2 clutches and they lost 1 retake. And so we really need to see WILDCARD pull through on their attack side. Their defense was good. They went 3-3. Then they only won 2 attacks. So if they can tighten up their attacks and they can tighten up their executes, stop losing out to clutches and retakes, then yeah, I think WILDCARD can take it, and I think that they can prove to be the better team.
Seeing enough from RENATUS, Raven, I feel like it's a very, really, it is just left out in the open here. Again, commenting on their victory against Fury. If we take that aside, we don't really have stats for them. Do you have an idea as to what we need to see from them?
I think something that they did struggle a little bit against Fury was just backing in on some of their defenses. I think that's the nature of Chalet though, like going back to those map stats in particular, yeah, Kitchen Dining is the outlier, 73% defense win rate, but actually everything else leans on the attack favored side. So it's always hard to say exactly how much of that is just their team dynamic or how much of that was the map affecting them. I think it's a bit tough to really kind of pull much more out of the rest of their stage. I think it just is fairly general inconsistency from their side, but like to be completely honest with you, from their first few playdays, they looked a lot better than I expected, and I wouldn't say generally throughout the stage they've looked particularly bad. It's just through that inconsistency they have struggled to find like their synergy and a moment to really gel together as a roster.
Well, it might be today. 9 points on the line for either team. Of course, only 3 points in today's match. Both sitting on 6, aiming for 6th place, funnily enough. The two to take you through it, it's the Hooligans, Guz and Xenox.
Well, guys, this one does kind of feel like a bit of a curtain raiser for what's going to be a big day here for APAC South. But as the boys kind of alluded to on the desk, this particular game doesn't really tie into those plans. It's big for the teams, though. I think for both WILDCARD and for RENATUS, a good way to finish off the season. Whoever does win this ends up with a good stage.
Yeah, no playoff implications, of course, as neither of these teams can crack into the top 4. But I guess on the flip side, there are longer-term relegation prospects for both of these teams. Neither one will want to finish in the bottom 2 because then that's a bad start to a long year.
Obviously, for RENATUS coming in from the promo relegations, there weren't a whole heap of expectations. Yes, they shot out of the blocks in Playday 1, but they have cooled off a little bit as we head to Chalet. 61% of you at home in favor of WILDCARD here, matching the predictions that we had earlier. And I think for WILDCARD, this should be a game they come into as the favorites. They'll be on the attack here for Chalet first, RENATUS on the defense as we head into the ban phase.
Yeah, and as mentioned on the desk, RENATUS arguably untested on this map, and WILDCARD, despite having a 50-50 win record, actually not a bad performance against the Chiefs. So RENATUS probably the underdogs as previously stated. Thatcher off the board first, not too unexpected in terms of attacking bans. That'll be followed up by WILDCARD with a Thermite ban. All right, that's a little bit left of field. Not unexpected maybe to see a hard breach ban on Chalet, but Thermite, a bit of an interesting one in that regard. I would argue that Ace and Maverick are much more powerful on this map in particular, but nonetheless, Thermite dealt with. Valkyrie followed up, very potent on the defense, even post-nerf, and RENATUS likely going to round that out with something we would expect, like a Mirror, potentially a Kaid even.
That's what I was going to say as well. I think Valkyrie, despite the nerfs, still very much in that sort of ban component. We've been seeing it a lot. Thermite, yes, does kind of stick out a little bit here, but Mirror gets taken off the board, so really 3 out of 4 of the bans end up going to script. And I don't know if the Thermite's really going to make that big of a difference as we head into Chalet. Our first match of the night, of course, this one, well, not exactly the match of the day. I'd say we've got 2 good matches of the day, though, later on. Of course, Direwolves Knights and then IG and Chiefs. Both of those 2 big ramifications. Of course, Elevate still needing to get over the line against Fury as well. For WILDCARD, it's an interesting one because I think the biggest difference for me this stage has also been the ability to play off of Cairo, who has been statistically their best player, but also keeping their round differential in a good position as well. -3 coming into this game. If they win and win in a comfortable manner, that's a positive round differential, 9 points gained. That puts it on par with a couple of their stages that they had last year, which really, when you think about it, guys, you almost, when you think of WILDCARD in 2021, you think of like really bad stages, but they had like a 10-point stage and a 9-point stage. Their worst stage was when they had the coach filling in, of course, Silex in stage 1, where they only picked up 6 points. If they lose this game, that is an equivalent stage to that particular stage all the way back in stage 1 of last year. So they're just such a weird team to sort of look at and place as to where they're at.
And I know it's probably easy to say this subjectively and maybe with a bit of bias, but it doesn't feel as if WILDCARD are necessarily playing at that same poor level they were when they only accrued 6 points. I feel like it's much like Fury, right? The rest of the league has kind of stepped up, and a lot of the roster changes on other teams have worked out really nicely, and maybe the metas suit them a little bit better, whereas WILDCARD, they are, again, in my opinion, playing better than they were with Silex on the team, and that's understandable, of course, but obviously not at a high enough level to be competitive against a lot of these teams. Obviously, the first Playday for WILDCARD was great. In fact, it's funny looking back at that result now, right? They took down the Knights 7-2, and now by the end of the stage, the Knights are one of the top teams, probably arguably the best team in OS. So it's just wild how things can flip like that. And unfortunately, Wildcard on the receiving end of it. But as we've also mentioned, yes, not huge implications on this matchup, but I mean, there's an extra $1,000 in prize pool. There's also a couple of extra points towards the yearly standings as well. And that can be really important come later this year. I don't think Wildcard obviously going to be thinking about relegations at this point. If any team is, you're already in a negative mindset, but it is something you have to realistically be monitoring.
Well, realistically, both of these two teams need to be thinking about playoffs in stage 2. Like, that's probably got to be on their minds here. Obviously, Fury, I know you said none of the teams should be thinking about relegations or anything like that, but they probably already might have that in the back of their minds with what's transpired here in stage 1. But for both Wildcard and RENATUS, you know, whoever wins this game goes to 9 points. 8, you know, could also be a possibility if it goes to OT. Suddenly, then next stage, the goal is to break into that top 4, maybe even top 5, right? Because it is a pretty strong top 5 right now. So, you know, you look at kind of both of these rosters and you think, who realistically could make that next step first? Would it be Wildcard or RENATUS? I'd probably edge to Wildcard. I think RENATUS probably need almost the entire year. I wouldn't maybe see them contending for top 4 till stage 3. Whereas if Wildcard can really find some consistency, they have shown us that this roster, when it performs at their best, can compete. So I think for Wildcard, it's about finding that consistency, and it has to start here, winning a game that they should be winning.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at Wildcard's wins, right? So they're on 6 points at the moment. They took down Knights. That was huge. Their second win was against Fury, though, so you can't really give too much weight to that. Unfortunately for Fury, they haven't won a game elsewhere. So now I'm starting to look across at maybe Wildcard's losses, and in fact, it's actually remarkable how close a lot of these games were, right? They pushed IG to 7-5. They were also able to push the Chiefs to 7-5. Even die with 7-4 is not an awful result, right? And you think, wow, if Wildcard could maybe just take one step further, get one additional round, they'd at least be getting a minimum of 1 point in a couple of those games. And if that was the case, today they would probably be fighting for a potential playoff position. So it goes to show that even small margins like that can have a big impact and a big flow-on effect for the rest of the stage. And that was something that Wildcard even last year, you know, publicly and even privately talking to Milo, for example, they were always critical of themselves being unable to close out games. They were often in positions where they were either leading or not trailing by much, and they just, for whatever reason, towards the end of maps, fell off a cliff and couldn't actually get points towards the standings, which ultimately was very, very costly.
The similarities, though, between Wildcard and RENATUS are quite stark, though, because RENATUS, of course, like Wildcard, shot out of the gates in Playday 1. They took down Alloy at 7-5. Maybe everyone kind of took notice of them really at that point and thought, geez, can these guys actually make a playoff run? And then, of course, you know, struggled against those playoff teams, but they did take down Fury. So both teams won in Playday 1 and then took down Fury. So they've got the same kind of path here. The only difference, and I'm glad you sort of pointed it out, is that Wildcard were a little closer in those matches against the top 4, top 5. So in those particular losses, you know, it was a lot of 7-5s and 1-7-4, whereas RENATUS, you know, they had that 7-1 beatdown versus IG and a couple of 7-3s. So they weren't quite as in those games. They weren't quite as able to sort of steal one of those. If Wildcard had a beaten, say, Chiefs, instead of 7-5 to Chiefs and it was 7-5 to Wildcard, they wouldn't be playing this game right now to, you know, in the bottom 3 for nothing. They'd be playing to secure top 4. So that's the difference, really. And that's why I think going into next stage, it's got to be Wildcard I look at to really push for top 4. They would want to be winning this game, though, of course, as we head to Chalet, finally underway for the night. So a little bit of a curtain raiser and then a delayed curtain raiser. We are underway here.
The curtains, they got jammed, but we've sorted it out. We pulled the chain hard enough, so here we are, finally. They head over towards Master Bedroom for the first round. Again, RENATUS on the defense, so they're electing to head us towards this objective. In terms of the lineup, pretty standard. Carl's, though, offering a lot on this particular objective, especially on some of these crosses, on repels. You think double window, you think even piano balcony as well, for example. At least going to soak up a little bit of utility. On this occasion, it's X-Kairos, Milo to pounce. Doesn't find anything, but again, can just post himself up on this position. Claymore down below to cover the run out, and he'll be chilling probably for the next couple of minutes.
Colgy's going to be the first one picked off, and lo and behold, it's Cairo. Has come into this stage, of course, making his APAC South debut, currently with a 1.14 rating, leading the way for Wildcard. Plus 14 on the KD. -2 on the entry, but really he is able to get the job done around the mid-game when you want it the most anyway. And gets them off to a good start here, especially attacking on Chalet. Oh.
Whoa, I don't know how that nade didn't hit. Hoven obviously coming across to support and gets the pick on Vinny. Milo trades, however, so the net result for Wildcard, not too bad. They still sustain that man advantage. I think they're going to give up, though, on this solar take. A lot of utility has been deployed, and now they'll need to make that rotation across, likely over towards the front balcony, maybe even push straight through library. That said, OJ is posting up West Main, so maybe they'll recommit, but from a different point of attack. They still have plenty of time, minute 20 available. Hermosa is obviously now chunked really, really low. OJ should be able to sweep in and get that kill. He will, leaving Rix and Ape now in the 2v4.
Yeah, pretty standard kind of attack right now for Wildcard, trying to pinch out those plays on Trophy Stairs, and it is successful. Leaves them with that 2-player advantage. Rix still on sight, though. Not sure exactly where Ape is. Haven't quite been able to see him. Rix gets caught a little bit there by Moloska holding the window. OJ now has 2 in the round, and it is going to be a Wildcard opening round. Ape actually inside of Office looking for the head of Moloska. Pushes out over towards Piano, but yeah, damage has been done. Decent start for Wildcard. I will say for Chalet, very hard to predict how this is going to play out. Attacker side, defender side. We've seen it kind of swing both ways over the last couple of weeks. It's not really a given. Like in the past, you would have easily said attacker side, but we've seen defenders do well on Chalet at times. As Pat closes out Ape, that's the opening round secured. Wildcard on the board.
Pretty straightforward there from Wildcard. Good clear over towards Trophy. There were some disruptions thrown their way by RENATUS, who put up a decent fight and actually soaked up a pretty good amount of time considering Wildcard got that pick so early, but ultimately it did come back to bite them. They weren't able to hold control on that side of the map, and once again, you've got that player posted up on double window on the rappel, so getting across from the likes of Office and Piano to deny that plan and really have an impact on the defensive half. Really, really challenging. So unfortunate there for RENATUS, but not the worst of starts. They can rotate now over towards Bar and Games, a more traditional site here in the Chalet meta, in the sense that it's pretty standard most of the time. And I mean, you've got the Jaeger, you've got the Wamai as well in combination here, so that tandem alongside the tandem deployable shields. We're expecting this round out to play very much as we would expect.
Yeah, and well, speaking of what to expect, hard to kind of expect how this game is really going to play out until we really see that second half. RENATUS, yeah, they got a bit of a sucker punch there in that opening round. Credit to Wildcard getting that opening pick and really making it quite easy. A lot of emphasis on clearing out that Trophy Stairs position. And then Bar Games looking like, yeah, it's going to end up just being rather stock standard here from RENATUS. Can't expect them to really bring too much out of the trick bag here. The question will be, how does Wildcard want to play this? We've seen probably less teams going for that north to south sweep across the map from Office and Bedroom. Looking to clear out then, say, top Library Stairs, and a little bit more of an emphasis even just directly into Library.
Yeah, Wildcard wanting to get basement control over towards Snowmobile as well. They've brought the Maverick. That's to allow them to get over towards the main stairs, open up the line of sight into backstore, clear out a really key position on this map. As a defender, it's basically the only place you'll likely be exposed to if the Mav's able to get in on that position. And that's why Wildcard is trying to push it. Cairo, quick entry in towards Wine Cellar. Ape does get the first pick. Cairo is looking for a bit of a delayed trade. He needs to be mindful, gets the first, but there's one to his left.
Oh.
He doesn't commit though.
What?
And gets taken down. Bit of hesitancy there, and Pat to capitalize.
I kind of feel like if Toldy's roaming down below, he's probably going to swing that and doesn't respond. In fact, actually fell off it and then into the sightline of Cairo. So Cairo picks up a quick double, punishing RENATUS. I was going to say a decent start at getting rid of OJ, but I don't think the Maverick's going to really play that much of a role here either. Library Balcony, the hot spot here for Wildcard. They've got that player advantage now, and they know there's one pinched inside of Library too. So it's just a matter of making sure they hold both angles here, and Pat Vince here will be patient. They know they can get a free kill.
Oh,
never mind, drops down. They allow him to go, actually. So clearly not holding the angles as well as you probably could have. Hermosa drops down. There is at least now Library control established for Wildcard. Minute 15 on the clock, so looking pretty good right now for Wildcard.
Hovenlow as well, spotted out. Trying to retake this position up above. Cairo gets 2. Vinny needs to be careful. Taken down by Hoven, who is one shot. Can now reposition behind the shield. Does Alex to drop though? Milo still monitoring this position, can surely claim that kill, but Hoven's back in towards site. 50 seconds.
Yeah, well, Wildcard just clean up. That was a little questionable on the fireplace stairs. I thought that's something that Milo would have been able to just call out and say, well, you know, he's made that cross, but clearly running out of library, just free kill. Didn't matter in the end at all. WILDCARD had the numbers, they had the position. It's a good start for WILDCARD. RENATUS so far have not really been able to sort of like land a punch and really fire much of a blow over towards WILDCARD. This is just all WILDCARD.
This is where you start to really question RENATUS and their approach to the game. Why are we going basement? Kitchen Dining's been played 15 times, 73% defensive win rate, well and truly above every other site on this map by about 30%. Yet they're going to the site which has less plays, a lower win percentage. Yes, it's the second win percentage, but it's only 46%. I mean, maybe they're trying to lean into the fact that Thermite's not available, which in theory can make this side a little bit more challenging, but I still really don't think this is the play. And RENATUS, if you let the first 3 rounds slip, you are well and truly in the back foot for the remainder of this match. And WILDCARD, once they get that ball rolling, they're a team that once they actually do start to claim rounds and have confidence, they play some really damn good siege. So if you lose the first 3, coming back starts to look really, really tricky.
5 seconds to insertion.
And you do have to think as well, Thatcher Thermite taken off the board, so there is quite a lot of attacking prowess banned out. I mean, yes, you lost the Mirror and the Valkyrie, but I'm not sure if that's really going to have as much of an impact. You know, if Thatcher was available and Thermite was available, you'd maybe be sitting back and saying, yeah, really attacker-sided here based on those bans. But in theory, we've seen enough teams defend Chalet well over the last few weeks, so it's not as clear-cut as just saying, oh, this is going to end up being attacker-sided. Of course, we have to wait and see. It may end up being the case.
Good work there, Maverick showing off the prowess. As Cairo
Bomb located by attackers.
gets yet another kill. That's onto Ape, the mute off the board. Obviously, Util already placed down, but again, defense, a man down, and WILDCARD thriving with this snowball momentum that they're approaching a lot of these rounds with. Vinny with a foothold over towards Car Garage, so that's good positioning. Pat will join him and aid in this west main push. RENATUS already starting to feel a lot of pressure, and we're only a minute into this round.
Yeah, and so far this entire half has just been pressure on RENATUS. WILDCARD have never really looked like being on the back foot. All 3 rounds have just been WILDCARD leading from the front, being proactive, working through the checklists, finding these easy kills. Vincia, yeah, just keep backpedaling a little bit. No, elects not to. Hoven was very fortunate there. Probably should have died. Cairo just continues to go on a rampage. Now up to 7-0-1 for the young star player of WILDCARD, having a, well, just a day out right now here on Chalet. Hoven up and dining, needs to make an impact here, but is just not able to.
Hoven still isolated. OJ finds another pick in towards site. The drop is forced. Can Hoven capitalize? Does get the first, the kit dropped. Pat caught off guard. Swings for the second, but can't find that. Cairo for 3. Now Hermosa isolated inside of Salah. Look how many angles are exposed in this position. There's nothing he can do. And WILDCARD get 3.
Well, it might not be a flawless round, but so far, WILDCARD have been quite flawless here on Chalet. Not really doing a whole lot wrong. Honestly, just playing very, very methodically, very clean siege as well, not really making that many mistakes. That makes it hard for RENATUS to get back in. I feel like when you look at these two teams, guys, it's a matter of who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. If WILDCARD's not making mistakes on their attack, if they're clean, if they're precise, if they're hitting their shots, there's not much window of opportunity for RENATUS to sort of fight back. They're just under relentless pressure from the get-go. Constant 5v4, constant opening picks, 2 out of 3 rounds now to Cairo. It makes it so difficult for RENATUS.
I must be missing something. I do not understand why RENATUS have not elected to go kitchen yet. By far and away the best site in this league. They've also banned out the Thermite, who for the most part is really strong in opening up that fireplace wall in towards dining itself. So I just can't understand why they're taking this approach. They're also going back to a site that they haven't won. I think at this point you need to be taking, even if you feel kitchen is a risk, which statistically it isn't, you need to be taking it anyway because you haven't shown much on any other site. Maybe RENATUS are banking on the fact that they're not going to lose a pick in the first minute because that's been their biggest issue so far. And that's honestly probably not really a site exclusive thing. You can lose a pick early on any site, on any map, if you're playing poorly. So maybe that's the goal here for RENATUS, and it's something they probably need to be aiming for. Really tidy up at the start of these rounds. Do not allow Cairo, for example, to go on another rampage. He's currently 8-0,
Yep.
and he hasn't even been playing fragging operators. He's actually been playing a supportive role, still finding a lot of these kills, which is insane.
A lot of it coming down to the fact that the way WILDCARD are playing, though, opening up so many sightlines like you mentioned, and it's just putting so much pressure on the positioning of RENATUS. They can't move. They're just getting strangled on site or even off site. And it told you, playing the roam game over towards kitchen dining, and you're questioning why they're not going there for the site itself. Well, they're running out of rounds to actually head there. You know, it's going to end up being one of those cases where if they lose this and then they finally head to kitchen dining in round 5, win that, then it's locked. Then you can only get one round out of it anyway. Again, though, it's going to be WILDCARD heavily setting up outside of library on this balcony.
Flashbangs and nades in combination here from WILDCARD. They'll be looking to clear out this southwest corner, prevent, I believe it's Hermosa, from dropping the hatch. Now, keep in mind down below, this is the Maverick entry. They'll be looking to open up that position in towards backstore. The proxy as well doesn't get alerted, so they will not know, the defenders that is, that these two are down below, unless there's some other form of information elsewhere, but I doubt it. So this is already a strong start for WILDCARD. Now, they haven't necessarily got the early pick that they've been relying on in a lot of these previous rounds, but the groundwork's been solid. They haven't lost any picks. They also haven't burnt a lot of utility. So WILDCARD, especially once they clear out Hermosa, will be in a great spot.
Clearing out Hermosa, not a giver, though. He dropped down rather early last time and was able to get away to backstore. May be able to do so once again, although Vincia needs to be holding a rather aggressive line of sight. And yeah, again, it's the timing of it. They just cannot clear him out. He's able to get away. Minute left, they finally get top library control. That's expected, but they haven't actually cleared out top library stairs. Shield in play as well. Ape can continue to play there. And now Morska pushing through piano. OJ down below in hallway. 50 seconds left, and Atoven gets the opening pick. Suddenly, RENATUS have found a stroke of good fortune.
Yeah, Hoven just running it out there. Cairo trying to find something back over towards backstore, but that player not revealing himself. And finally, RENATUS feel like a round could actually now go their way. Hermosa just needs to be mindful. His role here is to try and prevent the vault, and if he gives away his life, well, it could turn the fate of the round. Overly aggressive, Pat capitalizes. With 30 seconds to go, should be able to get down and get that plant at half wall. Told you, though, responds Ape as well.
Yeah, unfortunately for RENATUS, they're still holding a lot of the prime positions. There's no reason to swing big window there, right? Because like they're going to have to vault in. You know they're going to have to vault in. So there's absolutely zero reason for Hermosa to be swinging that. But fortunately, RENATUS had every other position still available. The fact that you've still got top library stairs means you can swing into library, makes it difficult. I think the downside for WILDCARD in that round, guys, is they just had too many players in too many different areas. They're all spread around the map. No one could play off of each other. You had one dining hallway, you had one up in piano, you had one over towards library balcony, one over towards big window, trying to get into games. At that point, you've just almost got too many people doing too many different things.
Yeah, and one of the big mistakes WILDCARD made in that round was allowing Hoven to just raid it out. He was sort of in that mezzanine double window behind the bookshelf. I'm sure people that have played ranked probably know that position pretty well. I know it's a pretty common sort of rat spot to crouch behind it, lean to the right. You can't really see it unless you thoroughly drone it out, and WILDCARD clearly didn't. Had they have droned it out, again, the round could have played out very differently. As well as that library clear as well, probably a little bit inefficient. You could see Vinny was trying to bait the grenade so many times to get Hermosa to run across his line of sight, but he just didn't. And then the 1 second he actually tried to commit to throwing the nade to clear the position, Hermosa dropped. So, yeah, good little play there from RENATUS to bring that back. We do finally head over towards dining now, so this could really kickstart a bit of a comeback in this half. This site statistically should go their way. We'll just have to see how they play it out.
Never a given though, is it, right? You can look at the stats all you like and you still got to play it. Can't just go in and expect it to happen. I think the biggest thing for kitchen dining is the way that the attackers really do go for this. There's so much that you have to do, clearing above rather than just going for that horizontal take below into dining. Otherwise, if you do that, you give the defenders obviously top vert control, which means they can deny plant or they can retake even easier. So realistically, I think the best case here for WILDCARD is that they need to probably commit to that top-down approach. You've got the sledge. That does indicate that they're going to want to try and clear that, maybe from a solar push, which would be kind of surprising. I think generally mezzanine wall gets opened up, and then you kind of push into office, get half-wall control. But if WILDCARD really do commit for a solar take here, it could actually speed up the round for them.
Yeah, the solar clear for a bedroom attack previously wasn't too shabby, so I think they're pretty comfortable with this sort of approach, and it can work out. I mean, it's a 50-50 shot which way you go. I don't necessarily have the statistical numbers as to which is more efficient, but it probably comes down just to team preference and composition, etc. And they've got the utility required to be able to pull it off. So we'll have to see how it actually does work. OJ down below. Big lines of sight all the way up towards the top floor, seeing if he can maybe clear out a player or a particular position. In fact, he's actually creating a line of sight for a nade. Told you he needs to be very, very careful. And it's absolutely perfect from OJ, unlocking this round for wildcard.
Well, they've clearly done their homework in this situation as to how they wanted to execute this round. Kyra needs to do his job, though. Playing outside that bathroom window, I thought maybe for a split moment, if he finds that second kill, that could be the round done. Yet, still, RENATUS have a big opportunity here. 4 players still alive, as long as they don't overpeak, get too aggressive. Flash goes into bathroom. I think he's going to try and go for the vault in. Oscar just covering the cross. Couldn't quite get the elimination onto Hermosa, but OJ gets rid of Holven. At least Nitrous are back from Ape to get one back, at least for RENATUS, but the damage has been done. Wildcard now have the advantage.
Hard breach as well, still available if they need to open up any lines of sight. Don't know whether or not dining's really on the agenda at this point in time. Probably going to be a trophy through to kitchen sort of execute. No nitros available as well, as Ape did get that kill. Really compromising RENATUS in the late round. That said, they still do have 3 gas canisters available. OJ, was there a player down there inside a kitchen? I don't know. If he held that angle, may have been able to find a pick. And nonetheless, 40 seconds left, and Wildcard now need to become increasingly conscious of the time remaining.
Fortunately, you can always just have OJ drop down on site if need be as well. But I don't think he needs to. Playing that sledge, he can just continue to be aggressive upstairs. Vinny now down below as well. Moloska down in basement with that fight against Ape. That's surprising. Wildcard, though, have been clearly the better team in this first half. They take a 4-1 lead. So much for Gaza's kitchen dining spiel that he was going on about before. In the end, the attackers take it.
And to be frank, that was actually Wildcard playing that really well. I don't think that was actually RENATUS playing it poorly. Obviously, there was that really good nade at the start from OJ that unlocked that part of the map, allowing Wildcard to then take Solar. Once they got that side of the map, then Hermosa, for example, inside of Piano was under a lot of pressure, particularly from double window. And just across the board, the amount of cutoffs that were being successfully executed there by Wildcard, really, really impressive. And maybe making that site look a little bit worse than actually it may well be reflected in the stats. So full props there for Wildcard, a 4-1 lead, so they're at minimum going to have the lead heading into the second half, and that's a really strong position to find yourself in.
Being the better team. I think you could obviously look at this and try and frame it as an attack-sided Chalet game, which, you know, obviously would not be too out of the question. As mentioned before, we've been seeing defenders do well on Chalet in recent weeks, so it's never a given anymore as to the fact as to which side it's really going to favor. I guess that's going to need to be the reprieve, though, for RENATUS, is hoping that attackers are just going to find it easier. But I think when you look at the way that Wildcard have been playing, Guz, they haven't been winning these attacking rounds just based off of formalities. It's the way that they've actually been playing into these rounds. Like that closet play with the nade, you don't get that because it's an attacker-sided map. You get that because you understand the map and you understand what you need to do and what you're trying to do. Even a solo take there is not the conventional means as to taking kitchen dining. So a lot of the things that Wildcard were doing were not really playing into the conventional norms. They've just been the better team. So it does not spell good news for RENATUS, as they have one more go of things down to Snow Wine, which of course was won by Wildcard last time in round 3, as they now look to make it a 5-1 scoreline here.
OJ heads straight over towards Snowmobile, looking to get rid of this mute jammer. That allows the Sunwell to now pop itself open. Snowmobile may not be necessarily a point of entry for the attack, but it applies a lot of perceived pressure for the remainder of the round. It means that as a defender, you can't really freely cross the likes of Blue or even through Snowmobile itself without being very conscious of those outside angles. In the meantime, a lot of the attack will now transition all the way across to the northern side of the map, in through the car garage. And again, pretty free real estate on this part of the map. As a defender here on Chalet, very, very tricky to sort of hold this off without being cut off from West Main. So Wildcard playing into the weaknesses of this site really, really nicely.
And it's up to RENATUS now to be aggressive, hence why, I mean, if you're going to be playing Snow Wine, you're playing offsite, you're playing above, you're going to be sending out roamers looking to try and find a couple of kills on a Wildcard, but I'm not sure if I trust RENATUS in the 1v1s right now with the way that Wildcard are franking out, especially Cairo, OJ, for instance, finding kills quite comfortably. Again, a lot of the work going to be down here in the basement hallway for Wildcard, as it was in that third round. And their ability to sort of open up this wall and create sightlines into Wine was the difference maker. You just couldn't really step foot on site if you were the defending team because WILDCARD just had so many sightlines established.
I do wonder how these walls are electrified. Are they claws above potentially? Because that first nade, I don't think cleared anything and it was on the mark. So not entirely sure how these walls are being denied, but either way, causing issues for WILDCARD. Cairo falls, that's the top fragger, and Kairos now in the grave, and RENATUS doing a really good job in holding back this push. They've clearly read into it and hard countered WILDCARD's approach, which for the most part is very, very similar to their last attack.
Yeah, definitely the difference maker here for RENATUS, which could be so big for them. Going into the second half, a 4-2 scoreline is not the end of the world, especially going on to the attack of Chalet. Hoban gets rid of Vincier, traded back immediately by Maloska. But there's not much time, just under 20 seconds remaining. OJ finds one onto Hermosa, suddenly now makes execution on site a lot more viable. 8 should be able to find this elimination, not quite capable, onto OJ. Again, time is an issue. Nitrocell gets rid of Maloska. Pat has the fuse, has to start sticking it, and he does not. Time runs out. As the half runs out, it's a 4-2 half in favor of WILDCARD, but RENATUS do bite back a little bit at the back half of that first half.
Yeah, some good promising signs there from RENATUS in the rounds that they were able to actually win, and that one, I guess, it just went past. Doing a good job in countering WILDCARD. Again, it is very, very tricky to hold off, particularly that sort of northern push straight into cellar, because Westmain's easy to cut off, but they still did a good job up in dining, causing a lot of issues. And forcing mistakes there from WILDCARD, who I think got stalled out by the wall being electrified and then left the rotation a little bit too late.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, 4-2, honestly, probably could have been a lot worse for RENATUS, and I think WILDCARD on the same side will be pretty satisfied as well, so yeah.
I think they would have taken a 4-2 half at the start of this game. The question is now, will they take a win, obviously, in the second half? That means yes, obviously, but what I'm going with this, guys, is attacker-sided. Will it end up being the case? Can RENATUS bring it back on the attack? Can they go for a 4-2? Can they send this to OT? I think in the past, we probably would actually look at this on paper. If you just take out the in-round equations, you would probably say, yeah, going into the second half, RENATUS in good position here. They got the 2 defending rounds. Chalet, generally attacker-sided. But there's just something that kind of feels like, to me, the way that WILDCARD actually played it in that first half and the way we've seen Chalet develop and evolve over the last month or so, I don't know if it's going to be that simple. RENATUS is going to have to play pretty well here, because WILDCARD certainly did.
Bit of a break between the halves. The TT in the chat, toilet time for WILDCARD. I didn't really see much tactical discussion. It was a couple of players going away for a quick break, come back refreshed, as WILDCARD prepared themselves for a bar defense for round number 1. Milo chunked lows, taking a little bit of untoward damage. Vinny, interestingly enough, bringing out Frost. Now, I'm a huge advocate for Frost in general. Don't mind dabbling in here with a bit of ranked here and there, especially on this side. A lot of vault-ins that are critical, especially if you want to get upstairs control, and just forcing defenders to clear it or look down, etc. for that vault can actually be quite impactful. Outside of that as well, of course, you have the deployable shield and the shotgun, offering a lot in terms of setup.
Amaro repicked by Tolji and Hovid as well onto the Twitch. We'll see if that has an impact later on in the round for RENATUS. If they come into the second half with clear plans of attack and execute it well, then definitely not a team you want to count out. But this is a test for RENATUS. In the majority, if not all of their losses so far here in Stage 1 of APAC South, it's been a lot of 7-3. The 7-1 loss to IG. They've not really had any of those kind of close losses per se, whereas WILDCARD, of course, have had an abundant of them. So it's very important right now for RENATUS to just keep close here. Keep that scoreline ticking over. Get a couple of rounds on the board. If they lose this first round of the second half, I'm not so sure if they're going to be able to keep up with WILDCARD.
RENATUS doing a good job to get that vault in towards Trophy. Unsure whether or not WILDCARD have a read on that. RENATUS don't immediately capitalize upon it though, however, instead playing a little bit safer now up above for a more traditional sweep from the north over towards the top library stairs. I'm assuming there's 2 deployable shields in these positions, one at the top of the stairs themselves and the other over towards mezzanine. Get the overview now, and I think it was the case. bit hard to see. Shock drone though sent out first, looking to clear those ADS devices from the Jaeger in Cairo. Well, my discs as well, probably close by from Milo. So this clear needs to be timed properly by RENATUS.
Yeah, very old school attack right now from RENATUS here. Sweep across from Solar into bedroom into office. Now trying to clear out top library stairs. Moloska loses half of his health in the end over towards the mezzanine chimney. He loses that shield as well. And so does Cairo. Job done in the sense of getting rid of that utility for RENATUS, but now only 50 seconds remaining in the round. Drop down from Hoven.
Oh, there's 2 players though. Oh, where's the Frost looking? Vinny looking the complete wrong way. Unfortunately for Hoven though, Milo renders assistance, 5v4.
Yeah, almost a little blunder there from Vincier, but fortunately, at least got one back. Does eventually die to Rix as their position was known. Most up above the mezzanine can do a lot of work here on the sledge. Make it difficult to see inside a bar. Time running low. We've got Rix with the diffuser on the Habana. Haven't really seen anything from Tolji on the Amaru. Maybe now, with only 15 seconds left, it might have an impact here. Over towards Fireplace. Moloska still loitering around dining room. Gets a bit of damage over towards Fireplace stairs, but it's a double kill on site here for RENATUS. OJ loses his life as well. Well, sorry, no, he gets rid of Ape. It's Moloska who dies. Now in a 1 versus 3. Rix from above.
Oh, time!
He got it. No!
Oh!
RENATUS went out. The elimination. What? How much time was left?
I think it was about 0.2 seconds. I think that was about 0.2 seconds. OJ denies the plant. 0.2 seconds left. RENATUS get the kill, win the round.
The trade was immediate.
So
it was absolutely immediate. We'll get the replay, of course, and we'll look at that timer. 1 point. Ah, that's going to be like 0.1.
It was close. Either way, very, very close. It should have been a much swifter trade. But it...
I thought he won in the round. I literally thought WILDCARD won that round.
I think most people would have. They should have.
Wow.
Losing so many picks late in that round. I don't know how they capitulated in towards the side itself. I'm assuming a lot of that was from the vert pressure, but nonetheless, the trade's lacking, particularly Milo as well. Had he have won that kill over towards Fireplace, there wouldn't have been a player there to trade OJ. They would have won the round.
Crazy. Big round win though for RENATUS, right? In the grand scheme of things, gets it to a 4-3 scoreline. WILDCARD don't really continue to pull away per se. 2 rounds in a row now as well for RENATUS, right? So suddenly from 4-1, now it's 4-3. Game on our hands. In what is, of course, the curtain raiser for the final day of APAC South. And, well, at one stage kind of looked like it was going to be a beatdown with the way WILDCARD started, but RENATUS are just clawing their way back in a gritty fashion though, right? Like, it's not clean siege from RENATUS, but it's gritty, and that's fine as long as they can get results, and that's what they've been able to do in the last 2 rounds.
And that storyline starts to creep in. WILDCARD unable to close out games. Honestly, after a 3-0 start, in my opinion, they were about 1 round away from basically putting the nail in the coffin, but they weren't able to get that round across the line. And from there, it's been a bit of a struggle street scenario for WILDCARD, who don't look quite as proficient on their defenses. Their attacks on the other side, I mean, they were super well drilled, really well coordinated. It seemed like everyone at every time had a particular purpose and role that they were looking to fulfill. Whereas on these first couple of rounds on the first round of the defense there for WILDCARD, sort of dismantling a little bit there at the closing stages. So that's something they'll look to tidy up here. RENATUS on the flip side, good quick map control early.
I'm reloading.
And it gives hope for RENATUS that they can not only bring the scoreline back, but maybe go on and win. It would be a disaster for WILDCARD to finish off the season, though, if they lose in this kind of fashion, right? With that 4-1 start, 3-0 start even. And yet another kind of collapse and another inability to win out from a winning position. Give them a lot of food for thought over the pre-season, well, I was going to say pre-season, but the postseason of Stage 1. Going into Stage 2 eventually.
Attackers have located a bomb.
But so far, this has shaped out to be an attacker-sided Chalet. Will it continue that way, or can WILDCARD find refuge here on Kitchen Dining? Closet looking to be the refuge point at the moment for a couple of members there of WILDCARD. One just pushed out. Told you now over towards Piano. Looking to really clear out this quickly. Bit of 10 remaining. Even droned out. Bit of vision. Moloska down. Vinny also got eliminated. So nice start here for RENATUS. Clearing above. WILDCARD's defense just lacking.
Oh, Ape though, taken down. The retake from Pat. Needed to try and force a play and does, but will he overcommit now? Maybe he needs to. Maybe he feels he needs to get back into the round, and with OJ down, he's probably right. Cairo needs to try and render rate. There's nothing he can do. It's effectively a 1 now for E5, and Cairo trapped in towards Trophy needs to make the play of his life with 40 seconds left.
Yeah, and even Cairo has just got a little bit cold in the last few rounds. Now 8-5 from an 8-1 start. Wildcard on the back foot. They've already taken toilet time as well, Guz. No way to stop this momentum that has started to form for RENATUS. It's 4-4. 3 rounds now in a row as we head to Snow Wine.
I do wonder there, a wildcard committing too hard up above. The point in which they died in the round, I think it was about, conservatively minute 10, minute 20, whatever it was remaining in the round. At that point, in my opinion at least, that's where you should be looking to try and rotate off. Clearly, RENATUS have a lot of util in the pocket that they're able to use and I guess abuse the defense. It wasn't Vinny or Milo's fault necessarily that they died there. There wasn't really much they could do to counter the amount of util. So RENATUS obviously playing it really well to time that and clear out positions based on information. But Wildcard on the flip side, arguably trying to hold that position a little bit too long perhaps. Could have much earlier made that rotation down through Solo, try and bunker down in towards the site. I understand that top floor can be quite important in denying plan and having some map control, but as Pat showed, I mean, clearly RENATUS aren't the best at holding their flanks, particularly when a lot of players are up. So that could have always been an option to try and retake later in the round.
And credit where credit is due, of course, for RENATUS. It's very easy to sit back. You're down 4-1. You've got no way of making top 4, not even top 5. You know, stage is effectively over. They could just kind of, you know, pack it all up. But they've really dug deep here and fought back this scoreline 3 rounds in a row. And both teams really giving everything they've got, because I think while there's not a playoff spot on the line, heading into stage 2, you want that good feeling going into, you know, what is essentially going to be the next, few weeks, months of scrims, feeling good that you're not a bottom 2 team, that you did get 9 points, 3 wins, 4 losses. Not a bad stage. But if you lose this game, suddenly it kind of is a somewhat bad stage, right? 2 wins, 5 losses, not as good a ring to it. 6 points, not really enough, and bottom 2. So there is a bit to fight for. That pride is on the line here for these 2 teams. And, you know, for Wildcard, if they lose this game, there's going to be some question marks going into stage 2 as to their ability to fight for top 4. Hermosa gets the opening pick onto Molosca. Shut him down, and suddenly RENATUS now have that player advantage once again.
Cairo elects to fall off, not wanting to commit to this shield position facing in towards Library. RENATUS now free to take its map control and establish vertical presence. Rix gets a second. Very different approach here comparatively to Wildcard, but they're making it work. They are systematically picking apart these roamers, and Wildcard, the more they fall, the more they feel the need to try and make a play in response. And I mean, that's rightly so, but it applies a lot of pressure now to these remaining players. Cairo, for example, now on this roam, needs to find something. If he gets shut down, the round is well and truly over.
I just love the fact that RENATUS, they don't just rely on one player. It's a team effort. When they do well, all 5 players are firing. Big turnaround. Yeah, I don't know if Wildcard have what it's take here. Cairo is the big play left in this round. Up above, you can see the silhouette. Ape, though, pushes in through storage. He loses out. Cairo did, in fact, get 1. By the way, on that flank, did die after that, though, shortly after. Now leaves it in a 2 versus 1. Vincier in wine. White screen in front of him. Talji, Hoven into blue now. He can't find anything. He's just got no information at all. They're on site planting. Turns around, he still can't find anything. Now he should obviously have a bit of an idea. Plant goes down, loses the first engagement. Well, actually not. It was a trade. Still, nevertheless, RENATUS make it 4 rounds in a row, guys. They take the lead here on Chalet.
This has been a really strong effort here from RENATUS to bounce back, and they are systematically picking apart Wildcard, who are overcommitting to these roams, not trading off one another, getting picked apart. They're relying still on Cairo to be making hero plays, and he has been playing so well throughout this matchup, but you cannot just rely on a sole defender to be making plays every single round. Now, sure, he hit a flank and provided a bit of disruption, but the damage earlier in the round came back to bite Wildcard, and they simply didn't have the manpower to trade out picks. They also didn't have information because it was cleared with utility. And RENATUS really just, I guess, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, etc. so far. on these attacks. And I cannot believe, honestly, we're in this position. I thought at the start of this game, when WILDCARD started so strong on those attacks, that it was basically over. But RENATUS proving me wrong, probably proving a lot of other people wrong, that they have the fight to continue this battle.
I feel like in some ways, WILDCARD's attack was still better than RENATUS' attack, but RENATUS' defense was better than WILDCARD's defense, right? So WILDCARD's defense has been in just disarray right now. They've just not even looked close to being able to take a round. They've now actually gone to, 3 different sites: bar games, kitchen dining, snow wine. Not even going to attempt master office, which you've only seen actually once this entire game of Chalet. RENATUS, of course, they won out bar games, they won out snow wine, and they looked a little bit more competent in some of the other rounds. It was more so just WILDCARD's really solid attacking play that shut down RENATUS. RENATUS just didn't get a look in because of how good WILDCARD were playing. This just kind of feels like RENATUS is beating down just like a team that is struggling defensively.
Yeah, it's been a little bit tricky to get a read as to how they're finding a lot of these early picks. I don't know how many of them we've sort of been capturing from memory. Not many, unfortunately, but that's just, again, the nature of Chalet and the nature in which RENATUS are playing. They're sort of just finding these solid picks quite effortlessly, really. Whereas WILDCARD, they were really committed, setting a lot of crosses and dealing with things very systematically. For RENATUS, it's been similar, but not quite the same sort of super duper structured approach, but it is working. Pat, though, gets the first. Will he overcommit, though? This has been the storyline for WILDCARD, overcommitting every single time.
Does he knows he's right down Fireplace Stakes. He looked up actually for a split second into backstore Hoven, and I thought maybe he was a little confused, but now he fully knows this. Now, of course, Pat is standing right on top of the diffuser, so holding a big position here. Hoven probably expecting maybe a flank. Told you, did find a pick back. That was onto OJ. I think at that point, Pat just needs to fall off, especially playing that smoke roll. If you're just sitting on Fireplace Stairs and someone just shoots you in the back, you lose that smoke. They've got diffuser. They've got advantage. So I think makes the right play to fall off there. It was job done. They're already a little in disarray here on the attack for what feels like the first time in the second half.
Yeah, they're definitely a lot more all over the place and not looking like that structured, cohesive unit we saw in a lot of those WILDCARD attacks. Diffuser vacated, Pat did rotate off. There was obviously that split second where I thought Pat's going to recommit here and possibly overcommit to get the second, but eventually does get himself out. And that means that his 3 gas canisters late round will be really critical, especially when you think about a half-wall plant if RENATUS sort of get to that desperation point of the round where they need to commit to that and fall back on a default. They do have control up above, so honestly, half-wall probably not too far out of the realms of possibility if they keep a player posted up there on the cross and prevent Milo from regressing. And talk about Milo under a lot of pressure at the moment, but gets swung upon.
Big down onto 8. Pat's now found 2 in the round. Vinny's still down below. 3 versus 3 brewing here with 40 seconds left in the round. Big one for WILDCARD. They lose this round. They cannot get all 3 points. Of course, RENATUS fighting for that overtime match point now, which would also secure them overtime at minimum if they can find the round win here.
They don't have Pat there for the Plantanol. Half-wall is free for RENATUS. They're going to get this to a post.
Well, they're in now. Amos is also watching too, so told you should get this down. Don't sense away that he's going to get denied. He does get it down. 1-for-1 trade. Cairo, nice swing at least into games. Wins that first engagement. Hermosa can't win out though either. Quick double for Cairo. They'll get the counter defuse in the end. So despite RENATUS getting the rather comfortable plant at the half wall, it was an easy retake in the end for WILDCARD. So they'll make it 5-5 going into the 11th round.
Yeah, well, they did get it to the post, and Pat obviously didn't use a single smoke canister in that round, so that was a large reason as to why it was permitted, but couldn't quite hold on. A little bit messy in towards the site itself, stacking on one another, and WILDCARD with the manpower and a little bit sharper aim, able to win out those engagements. A little bit sketchy. I'm sure the comms would have been quite hectic because they had no real way of denying the plan, and if library is being monitored properly, it means you can't really go above either, so they just had to force themselves in towards site and critically prevent anyone from being able to jump out. If there were 2 players outside in the post, from that position, it's almost unattainable. So they did a good job to prevent that, and WILDCARD reaped the benefits.
It does mean bar games now locked, of course, for the remainder of this second half, which has been probably the better side for both of these 2 teams defensively. No real surprise, as we know here on Chalet. So 5-5 scoreline. WILDCARD need to find success elsewhere. They head to kitchen dining for the second time in the second half. If we remember back, RENATUS, of course, had a rather methodical take up above. They cleared out WILDCARD pretty comprehensively in that 8th round. So WILDCARD will need to be a little bit better here defensively. I think last time you said maybe it was a bit too much of a commit defensively up above.
Yeah, last time they were really holding it to their death. You know, sometimes there are particular positions and whatnot in Siege where you hold out until you know you're going to die, but if that is the approach here from Wildcard, they need to be making enough adjustments so that they can actually take with them a player or two from the attack to the grave as well, because last time they were completely overwhelmed with utility, and understandably so, Milo nor Vinny were ever in a position to fight back because they were blinded or mindful of grenades or whatever the case was. So if they are going to hold above, either really double down, like super double down and get even more aggressive and prevent util from playing a big part, or rotate off down through Solar, get back towards the side and actually force maybe a bit more of a 4v5 or 5v5 on the side itself, which I think Wildcard, if they play as cohesively as they were on the attacks, is going to favor them.
Yeah, if you've just kind of tuned in over the last couple of rounds, or even just now, Wildcard were very, very good in that first half on the attack. 4-2 half. They themselves were quite cohesive, very decent with their attacks, and have unfortunately not been able to really translate that into the second half on their defense. They've just been a little bit lackluster. But to the credit of RENATUS, have been also very good. It's been a very attacking-sided Chalet. Oscar low. Ape took a little bit of damage early on in this round as well. But other than that, no real engagement so far. And it is going to be a rather different approach, though, from RENATUS. Maybe a bit more of a conventional office wall opened up, get control of half wall.
And sorry to butt in, you could already see, look how more defensively Vinny and Milo are playing. So much further back. They're not hunkering down in the little box trying to hold down lines over towards Piano, for example. They're a lot more committed to actually falling back over towards Solar. So it seems like that they're not wanting to hold down that line till their death. Instead, try to get back towards site. And these nades, for example, from Hoven, they're not going to do anything. Last round, Milo was holding that. He'd be dead right now, but instead playing more defensively. And the time, it is even worse off here for RENATUS. So Wildcard in a fantastic position. OJ trades for the first.
Well, no trade there as Vincier goes down to Rex. RENATUS now with a slight advantage. Hey, does he take that peek? No, he just turns his back and crosses the window from bathroom. That he probably should have gone down for. And yet actually didn't all take that much damage in the end because he was already quite wounded before that. 50 seconds left for the round. Molosca still over towards Solar, and Trophy Stairs at least can look down below as well. There is a player outside of that window. It'll all come down to timing though. He walks away from it. Now watches it from a different angle, gets the information onto Hoven, who took a few shots. Molosca's low though, and he was just in the wrong sight though. Rex from up above spots him. Now it's only Pat and Cairo in a 2 versus 4.
Where is Cairo? That's the question. Could make a big flank. Pat on site holds down, and now Cairo needs to support.
Does just do that. Brings it back to a 2 versus 2. Time, a bit of a factor here as well. No diffuser in the hands of Ape or Tolji. They're going to need to find his elimination. He see him. He shoots him. Cairo, though, for the flank. No, Cairo couldn't get the response that was needed. It is RENATUS who will take match point going into the 12th round.
I'm just being told by the boys that the players can't hear me. Yeah, thanks, guys. I know. I just got a bit excited. I think he saw that like more than once. I think he saw it before I called it. But anyway. RENATUS doing a good job to close that out. Cairo, should have probably won that trade. It's big engagements like that late round. You've got to be able to win out. Force the 1v1. Had time on his side. Couldn't do it though. And RENATUS, they continue this really strong response. The first couple of rounds of this map were genuinely really
We're not in ranked, mate. There is no voice chat here. I can't hear you.
No, they can't. I mean, Miley heard me for the most part. Didn't die above, but obviously got caught on that rotation, which was unfortunate.
Well, a big opportunity for RENATUS now. They were down 4-1. Since then, they've been able to win 5 of the last 6 rounds. Wildcard seemingly just unable to find any momentum in the second half. And obviously, bar games go their way in the 10th round. That was rather close, though. Counter defuse was needed, as the plant was successful for RENATUS. And practically in every other round, it's not really been all that close. I mean, in fairness, maybe even that last round in particular, bringing it down to a 2 versus 2, somewhat winnable for Wildcards. So in reality, it wasn't all that far off. I mean, the Cairo swings gets that trade, makes it a 1 versus 1 with little to no time. So big double in the end for RENATUS to close out. Get match point. That's at least 1 point secured as well for RENATUS. Can they get all 3?
Where is this claw? Is it up above? Oh man, this is an OG rank strat. I remember bringing this one out in day one. The cheeky claw up above under the window. Good rotation there from Vinny, able to juggle it back across over towards the wall. Now, it doesn't mean all that much with the Thermite banned out. You can counter it relatively easy with the Maverick. And in fact, I'm starting to really now question the Thermite ban here from Wildcard. I don't know if it's probably had their desired impact, as it seems like RENATUS pretty switched on and being able to counter it. I guess it was a bit of a hard counter at that. Let's hold that thought, though. Ricks onto Hoven with the TK. Told you, though, onto Milo brings it back.
RENATUS just killing everyone at this point, even their own teammates.
That's the hard breach as well. I mean, a lot of pressure now on Ricks, who I think was, target banned by the Thermite here from Wildcard. Still, they've been having a pretty decent impact. We'll have to see where he now rotates. It might be an approach from the north, like we saw from Wildcard, to pinch out Cellar.
4 versus 4. Wildcard looking to send this one to overtime. They can no longer finish this stage on 9 points,
A bomb has been located.
which does mean this is going to be their second worst stage since stage 1 of last year with this new roster. So not ideal that they've not been able to improve on stage 2 or stage 3 of 2021. Of course, first stage with the new roster, albeit not that many major changes, though, I think, to it. You've still got Pat, you've still got Milo, still got Vinny. Kyra's, of course, come in and basically been your best player anyway. I think if they lose this, it's probably then going to be a disappointing stage for Wildcard. Mostly just takes a bit of damage there. That nitrous cell. Just under a minute remaining.
Good opportunity, though, for RENATUS to launch themselves into that 6th position and scathe off some of that relegation threat, at least in stage number 1 and in this round. Doing some decent groundwork so far. The only blip on the radar was that team kill, but they recovered from it nicely, and even the lack of the Maverick doesn't seem to be costing them all that much, at least at this point in time. That said, the players inside of Cell are looking relatively cozy. That's not what you want to see if you're an attacker, and RENATUS will now need to try and rotate Vinny, a nice nitro from down below to drop the kit.
Yeah, Rick's had kit, so they're going to go pick that one back up. That's really going to hinder RENATUS here. I think we're heading to overtime, unless Wildcard really throw this one, because they are in the best position to close this one out and head this one to overtime. Kyra's low, sure, but surely Pat just swings. He should be able to deny it, pulls out the shotgun, waits for the swing back the other way, and yeah, that's going to be an easy round win in the end for Wildcard. We head to overtime here for our curtain raiser of Playday 7 of APAC South between Wildcard and RENATUS. Hopefully, the games after this, guys, will also play in a similar manner.
I'm almost envisioning this being somehow the closest and most entertaining game of the night, knowing our luck. We haven't had the best of luck this stage, but no, in theory, this should be one of the quote-unquote quieter games. No playoff implications for this matchup, unlike every other game tonight, which has a playoff implication.
Starting with Direwolves and Knights after this. Knights, well, they don't need to win, but ideally would want a point. Of course, Direwolves already locked in, but looking to go for the 7-0. It hasn't been done before in APAC South. And of course, after that match of the day, IG versus Chiefs. Technically, both can go through, but there's a lot of different things that have to happen. Otherwise, loser very likely out. And Elevate versus Fury. Elevate just need to get the job done, as you would expect. So big night tonight for those just tuning in. Sit back, relax, because this is very much the curtain raiser for a reason. And boy, it's been a good one. 6-6, both teams really fighting it out. No one wants to finish in the bottom 2. And I think really to sort of sum up that second half, it did have a lot of similarities to that first half, right? The first 3 rounds, you're sitting back and you're thinking, oh, wow, the attacker team, they're just going to run away with this. But as the half went on, the defense did start to get situated a little bit better. Wildcard did pull out 2 of the last 3 rounds, same as did RENATUS in the first half. So this is really as even as you could ask for, hence why we're in overtime.
Back to bar for round number 13. Wildcard substituting out the Jaeger. So we're not going to see the double projectile denial in this round. And I'm assuming that's in response to RENATUS' really strong clear. Cairo. What is that? Ape just gets an absolute freebie up on that top balcony near the front door. I mean, it doesn't get much for that, and that's significantly going to open up the round.
Get through to Cairo as well, which is always a big frag. Oh, I told you. With this angle, distance away, Pat just decides to swing, loses half of his health for basically no reason at all. Still 2 minutes to go. You're already down Cairo, and now Pat's at half health. Wildcard in a predicament.
Backstore line of sight as well, exposed now. And RENATUS not really having to feel the threat of the clock just yet. Still in a great position. And as I was going to touch on earlier, their clear of the shields has been great, and their clear of the roamers now even better. 3 versus 5. Wildcard again on the defense, overcompensating. And that's because of the pressure of the first pick. Someone now, OJ in that instance, feeling the need to make a play. It proves costly. Now Milo's going to go for a play. Pulls it off though. So it's a 3v4.
Yeah, but that's just been the measure of a wildcard, as you've kind of pointed out, making play after play simply because of the fact that it's the opposing team making the first one, and they're just trying to bring it back. At the very least, yes, Milo does find that frag. Now brings it to a 3 versus 4. You take Ape off the board, who has been fragging out pretty nicely for RENATUS. There goes Molosca for seemingly nothing. There's still a minute in this round. If you're playing bar games and half your team is dead with a minute left, something's gone wrong. You've done something wrong. Round's over. Over with a quick double, and RENATUS didn't even step foot inside. Don't even know if they stepped foot in library. They're bizarre round.
3 uncontested kills. You had the opening kill, Cairo running across. You had Milo there exposing himself to library window. You also had OJ down below, who couldn't really provide much of a contest. Pat as well dropped half HP running across the front door. I mean, there were just so many mistakes there from Wildcard, unnecessarily exposing themselves to the attack. Obviously, yes, RENATUS are in good positions, and I mean, the aim was true enough to inflict enough damage, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's just really weird what we're seeing here. Wildcard, in stark contrast, I'm sure we're probably going to see it on this attack. Every single player has a position and a purpose. It doesn't feel like that at all on their defense, where everyone's sort of running around like a... I don't even know how to describe it. It's just really, really weird, the contrast on their halves here.
It's like a free-for-all.
I guess, yes, it is Chalet. I know it's really hard, and I'm probably being unnecessarily harsh here on Wildcard, but it's just really strange to see their attacks look so well-focused and targeted, and however you want to frame it, whereas the defenses have just been anything but.
Credit to RENATUS though, playing into it basically. We saw that sightline Tolji was holding through main entrance. He's almost expecting Pat to just peek him. When in reality, Pat probably shouldn't be peeking that at all.
They've got the sixth sense. They've got the sixth sense.
And I think we've seen that a couple of times from RENATUS in this game, where they're just holding angles, fully expecting wildcard. I think I saw it earlier pushing into mezzanine window, and then there was one player from RENATUS that was just sitting there for ages waiting for that player holding mezzanine chimney to make a peek, because you just know Wildcard get antsy on the defense. They just want to peek everything, and they just want to expose themselves to everything, and RENATUS are playing into that really, really well, and that's probably been the difference right now. And that's why I think Wildcard are fine on the attack here, right? Because they're aggressive. They're almost hyper-aggressive. They've just got to be on the move. They've got to be constantly doing something. And it works out better for them, especially Chalet attack. I think that really plays into that sort of style. So bar games we go. 14th round. Wildcard looking to send this to a 15th round. Remember, their attacks in the first half were systematically very good. So by no means is this game over just yet, but they will have to go back on the defense for that final round, which is concerning.
For sure, but I guess Wildcard will look to mount that obstacle when it approaches them. At the meantime, though, they need to focus in here on this particular attack. A lot of attacker repicks executed here, and one of the notable ones is bringing the Dockerby into the lineup. So I expect to see Milo try and play disruption here. It is a bar defense, and the 2 default shields are in position. So Wildcard need to make the call. Do they go for the office sweep, try and clear out those positions, or do they go for what they attempted similarly to their previous attempt, right? Which was a lot of focus over towards library, try and get in towards games and then prevent the rotation. Now with Milo getting the first pick, that alleviates some of that pressure. A lot of the pressure that's been felt on the defense. We've told you off the board, one of the top fraggers as well. They should have a bit more free reign here on the attack.
We've seen Hermosa playing this back library position many times and has not died, I don't even think, once. Every time he's been able to make the escape down the hack, and he gets a free swing onto Vincent. They cannot win this minigame. They both lose. You're losing to the player in library. You're both supposed to have the window cross. Like, he shouldn't be able to do that, and yet does so. Full credit to Hermosa, guys, because you know what? It's not just the one-round wonder. He's won that position every single time. Yep, well played, Hermosa.
The timing from Hermosa perfect on every occasion, and unfortunately for the attack of Wildcard, disappointing. OJ, though, will finally drop him. Hermosa exposed that angle and didn't know that was the case. Hoven again in this wrap position. He's played this before. He took down Milo on one of the previous attacks. Wildcard need to drain this out. There's no excuse. You have Jackal as well. Hoven, though, he's going to get this, surely.
Hoven gets rid of OJ. Well, if there's 2 players you want left alive to salvage this for Wildcard, it would be Molosca and Cairo. Two players that are certainly capable of the big-time plays that are required here. 30 seconds left. Fortunately, can drop down with Diffuser, can go straight in towards Games. He just vaults straight in. There's no way he goes down to the Frost mat. Cairo goes down to the Frost mat. I cannot believe what I'm seeing from Wildcard in this round. Neither can Guz. Molosca can't win it. It is Renatus. In the end, that take out the curtain raiser. What an appetizer for the remainder of the day. Renatus set the tone here for day 7 of APAC South.
Really proving that they can dig deep and have an impact in this league. Renatus, a lot of room for growth from here, but they launched themselves out of the bottom 2. They will finish in 6th position in their first stage of APAC South competition, a result that they can be very proud with and provides a lot of foundation for them to build upon. A really gritty performance from them. By no means, again, the best siege we're ever going to see on. Definitely not the best we're going to see tonight, but the fact that they were able to bring it back after such a slow start, super impressive. And the fact as well that they closed it out on defense, where